All right, well, we might as well just hit this to roll it. I like to start off. Probably a little loud, but I ain't tripping. Thursday, 9 p.m. Dat NBA Life, episode 15. I got James right here. And we're in the heart of the NBA playoffs, right? It's round 2 is where it starts to get interesting. And there's less games. You can kind of watch all the games now. So we're going to definitely dive into that. But I got to catch up with you anyway, though, because you didn't come through last weekend. What's going on with you?
Man, nothing much. Had a funny little situation today at the gas station, but everything's been good. I've been writing this long paper, trying to get things in. I'm finally going to turn it in tomorrow, so that should be lucrative. So I hope and pray that it works out. But yeah, man, I was gassing up my car, and all of a sudden I hear this, hey, hey, and it was this older lady, and she was a pretty woman. She said she was from New York, and she said she had a daughter that was 22 and was this, that, and the other. And she handed me her number, and it was just kind of crazy. I was like, is the mom interested? Does she actually have a daughter or whatever it is? It was just kind of crazy because she was hecka old school to where she caught me off guard. You know, normally I wouldn't even have engaged her or nothing, but she just caught me smooth on some New York sweet talk. And I know my wife's going to watch this. So what I did, I took the little number, but I definitely ripped it up and went about my day. But it was just kind of crazy. So, yeah, I guess she was trying to pawn her daughter off. But either way, it was cool. So other than that, work's going well. Excited about these games, man. Like, it's been looking good.
So you think it was for her? That there's some funny style stuff with the whole daughter arrangement thing. And, you know, like I said, the same damn time, bro.
Yeah, man.
No, anyway, that's the way to start this thing off, man. So tonight there was Boston, Philadelphia. I just got done watching that. What do you think just of this of the series overall? I know you don't really give picks, but some of the storylines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the storylines. Well, in the first game, they were having that not a rookie or the he's a rookie. So just that whole kind of Ben Simmons type deal. He says he wasn't fazed by it. He probably wasn't. But I do have to say, I think they stated that Tatum was one of the first Celtics to have 28 plus points since Bird in a playoff game since the 80s or whatever. So I'm just trying to see that matchup between them two. And they were kind of disappointed about their first game performance. But I think they're going to end up getting it right. I like the fact that Rozier wore that Bledsoe jersey to get that last jab in over at the homie Eric Bledsoe. But and with Rozier specifically, I was looking up some of his background and things like that. He's been a standout for a long time. But at the top of his Wikipedia, I find it kind of foul that the first thing you see, the very first thing, is that he lived with his grandmother and his mother. His father's in prison for assault and robbery and all these things. I'm like, out of all these glowing things this man has overcome, why does that have to be at the top? But outside of that, you know, I think the Celtics have the momentum and they just consistently keep performing with people coming in and out of the lineup.
I think the consensus was that Philadelphia was going to win. Boston just too undermanned, and as good as Brad Stevens is, and they're young, and Jaylen Brown in and out of the lineup, and then you watch the games, and I had mentioned, remember, that they defend the three-point line better than anybody. And that's kind of Philly's whole design is Redick, Bellinelli, Covington, even Embiid pumping the threes as Ben pushes transition and probes and uses his size to, you know, with this precision passing. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but I feel like I think what's on everybody's mind right now is like, yo, Golden State, Boston, NBA Finals. And, you know, and being a Warriors fan, I feel like a little nervous. One, stylistically, they're designed to play against the Warriors, and they have all these wings that can defend and switch. They defend the three ball, and then I feel like Danny Ainge is such a sneaky bastard that like Kyrie and Hayward are just like laying in wait. Like the finals, they'll make it to the finals, and then he'll be like, oh, by the way. You know what I'm saying? And he'll just unveil Gordon Hayward with like a buzz cut and a beard, looking just real brolic, and it'll just be like, what the fuck? But you know, I don't know. But more to the schematics. I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but it just popped into my mind. That's what as I'm watching them play, I'm like, my God, they may just come out of the East. Would this be? And then is it really Kyrie's team? If they get out of the East without Kyrie, sorry, bro, you got to go find another team. This Jason Tatum's team.
Yeah.
Tatum is,
Yeah.
I have been cautiously optimistic, and I've heard Celtic fans, and they're like, saying just, I feel like we need to pump the brakes on him a little bit, but maybe not so. He is buttery smooth, and he's one of those rare athletes where, because a lot of guys are athletic, but they don't know how to quite use it. I myself am that way sometimes. It took me into, my mid-20s to learn how to play like unilaterally, like off one leg, jumping off one leg and I was such a two-footed planter and jumper. And he can do both, and then he's efficient. He's an efficient elite athlete at a young age, and that's crazy to see. Bane hitting corner threes in game one was a little bit surprising. Again, I don't watch that much Boston, but ultimately my takeaways thus far have been, now it's 2-0 Boston, and after this game 2 tonight, is it's really hurting Ben Simmons that he doesn't want to go to the free throw line, because he'll push and then he stops like right below the free throw line, and he doesn't go all the way to the rim and seek contact, and he could do that, and that's hurting him. They're using their length, they're gapping him obviously, but he needs to push and draw contact. And if not for nothing, I don't care if he goes like 3 of 15 from the free throw line, he needs to foul some of their guys out is what he needs to do. And then Embiid dribbles too much. I don't know if you've seen remember when I said he has so many skills, he wants to show them all off, right? And so he kind of like gets the ball and he like goes into a dance. He's like, I'm going to show you a pivot, a jab step. I'm going to go between my legs. It's like more is less. You're 7'2", 290 pounds. Just one dribble and make your move. And he'll
No, you're right. It's kind of like trying to organize the finishing move in Mortal Kombat, where it's like up, down, left, right, square, square, left trigger. It seems like maybe he has like a formulaic pattern of what he's trying to do. And then if you miss the finish him, it's just hella devastating.
Yeah, he needs to. I don't mean to cut you off as we incorporate these. But no, I know what like. It's just too much. And they're young. You're seeing, so Boston not only has the coaching advantage, then you're seeing Al Horford. And then who else? I'm trying to think. It is young, though. Jalen, Tatum, Rozier, the three main players are young. So I don't really want to give Philadelphia the young excuse, because they have Redick, Bellinelli, Ilyasova, right? So I think they're both very young. But I don't think the series is over. Philly is a legit home court. They're going to put up some fight. But it's just Ben Simmons is going to have to figure something out in this series for them to have a chance.
Sure. It was funny. They were showing some footage of some old school Dr. J versus Larry Bird, and it kind of reminded us of that. We talked about it before, but remember that game we coached with Champions, how there was that epic handshake at the end where it could have gotten a little bit ugly. If y'all get a chance, review how Dr. J gives it to Larry before he even knows what's up, because Larry was talking a lot of stuff to him. And what was funny about it is Dr. J's homie got him behind here, so Dr. J had full ability to really get it in, because the other cat was hemmed up. So there's just some old school for you. Check out Larry and Dr. J. It was kind of funny how they were showing it. But yeah, you're right. They're going to have to be far more aggressive. The Sixers are.
They're not going to. And they shot like almost 40% from the line tonight, 3-point line tonight. But it's just, I don't think they're going to win it with the three ball. They're going to have a counter and beat in the post. They got Bane out of there quick in this game and went small. But Rozier is a, the breakthrough star of this playoffs right now. We already knew about Donovan Mitchell going into the playoffs. Rozier's really, I don't know how they're going to, I don't know his contract situation. I imagine that Boston's going to try to turn him into something. There's no way he's going to be a third guard in this league. I've said that before. But back to your story, the champion, just for you guys to know, this dude be on the sidelines, like cleating into the ground and breathing hard and looking at cats like he's really ready to like Goldberg spear them. And I'm like, yo, man, just, you got parents nervous and shit. Like, what's wrong with Coach James? And you do well to control it, but visibly, if from afar, if you were to just be watching the situation, you'd be like, oh, this may erupt. Like, this may.
Yeah, bro. Hell yeah. Speaking of that, last night we won the championship. I know it's just some nonsense, but I was pretty pleased about that. So I kept it under control. But yeah, man, I was real pleased about that. But I'm glad you were there. You do very well with crowd control and keeping it smooth, because you always got a level head. So that's always fun. But yeah, man, I think if the Sixers are going to make a change. You might be right. The 3-ball might not be the way, a little bit more in the paint, getting a bit more aggressive. And if Embiid can stop using the joystick and maybe just shoot,
it's funny
dumb
because
it down a little bit.
The trajectory is, I think, and I've spoken about this before. I was thinking about it. I was at my daughter. She has her playoffs, and I'm watching them practice a press and stuff like that. And I'm watching this one kid who's real smooth, the best player on the team. And I'm like, damn, he's better than me at that age for sure. But I don't think probably wasn't as athletic. But the advantage of YouTube, and like think about it, here we go back in my day, but you know what I'm saying? Like where you had 2 or 3 opportunities a week to watch a live basketball game and like pick up what they're doing, right? Unless you had like videotapes of like, the All-Star game or whatever like that, VHS, right? But the access to visually learning stuff today is crazy. And back to Embiid and Simmons and these young guys, I don't know how much better they do get. Like, I think that they learn situational awareness, like down the stretch of this game too. You saw the youth in them, and Tatum already has that. He held up and was very in control. But I don't know, like skill wise, how much better they get from like 20, what are they, 22, 23 to 26, 27. Like it's more nuanced than the leap we used to see because they're already coming in with their skills like at 8 and 9. But yeah, so I don't know. But my point, I always just get to rambling. My point about Embiid is we know he's smart. We know he hasn't played that much basketball. One thing I will say is I don't know if he has the motor for playoff intensity. Like he's we know how big he is.
His mouth has the motor,
he got them
though.
Twitter
His
fingers.
mouth
He got
seems
them
to
Twitter
be
fingers.
moving
But
frequently.
like his engine, they've talked about how he's not really in that good a shape. And I was listening to a JJ Redick podcast, and he goes, "Yeah, Embiid steps out on the court and slides like 5 minutes before the game, like eating popcorn, and then just plays. He has like basically no pregame preparation. He's not really a pro yet." So his conditioning can get better, but right now he looks fatigued. He doesn't look like he has the motor to compete the way the Celtics, man. God damn. They're going hard. Like they're playing as hard as any team in these playoffs. Boston and Utah are playing the hardest basketball right now. But let me go. So I went on and shout out to Boom Called It. The app I'm supporting, you guys have seen it on my videos, it's a new app. It's a friend of mine's app. So it's not just something like, hey, guys, go to know. Like I know the creators of this app and I am on it and using it. And I called the Raptors. I got to win this game. Boom, I called it, right? I picked the Raptors to bet to get the BCI for it. And they shot. I'm done with these dudes. And at first, I don't like being wrong. I don't really care about the Raptors, but I don't like being wrong because I'm usually, who does, right? But so I'm thinking people, they're hitting on people on Twitter like, hey man, what's wrong with the Raptor? And it boils down to this: the Raptors have made a hoe a housewife. Right?
Ooh.
No, I mean, and what I mean by that is that they have belief. They've put their belief and faith in something that's not that. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry are not that. And they've continued to have faith and believe in them and not change it up. They've added pieces here and there, and I really do like the young supporting cast. But ultimately, it boils down to your star players. We've seen this as the rotations cut down. And Kyle Lowry, he's been a six man. When he was in Memphis and Conley came into the league, they were like, Lowry, go to the bench. He looks like an assistant manager at T-Mobile, dude. Like dude, so this isn't a knock on Lowry. And here's the thing is he's an overachiever, right? I'm serious. He looks like, what does he look like? He's he'd be cruising around Best Buy in the blue polo, right? You know what I'm saying? And he's like, hey, what's good, homie? But right. So he's an overachiever. So it's innately in him to believe that he can do more than he can, right? That's why he overachieves. And he's commanded a big contract and he has overachieved. But ultimately, he's not a guy that you can have as your starting point guard. And then this gecko-looking nigga, DeMar DeRozan. I know I'm going off but I'm just tired. I don't want to be wrong. That's what it is. And I placed my faith in these dudes, and it is what it is. But DeMar DeRozan, schematically, if you want to talk about it, he doesn't understand pick and roll offense. He just doesn't to me. I watch him, his timing out of the pass, when to pass, when not to. I don't know. At this point, if you don't got it, you don't got it. You know what I'm saying with that? And he's again, these aren't knocks. I'm not saying these fools are scrubs, but DeRozan can't be the best player on a championship caliber team. We're seeing that. And to call it LeBronto, that, I mean, so they're done, right? They're psychologically done. Missed that one. My bad, y'all. But it's all good, man. You can't call them all. But the one thing I will say about this is if LeBron somehow, some way, I know I've been getting kind of carried away here and I'm rambling. I'm going to stop in a second. Maybe not. But if he somehow won the championship this year, right? That's kind of crazy talk. Could we just close the door on the GOAT talk?
I think, well, no, sir, not yet. I mean, you still, until he gets around 6, it's still open and there's other arguments you can make. But yes, that will definitely, at least, that door, there will only be so many things you can definitely say because this is the worst supporting cast that he's had. He's played thousands and thousands of minutes. He has been very productive at pivotal times. And yeah, if he can somehow pull that off, that I might think he's possessed or he's done something crazy because the odds are just so insurmountable. But that's a great question. But to your point, how we were always talking about how people evolve. I was hearing Cowherd and Jackson talk about DeMar DeRozan. They were saying, okay, Reggie Miller could take his skill set and play in today's game. LeBron could take his skill set and play back in the 80s and 90s. Jordan possibly would be much more of a three-point shooter now, or he would need to. So then Cowherd asked, who would be the Jordan-type player currently? And I believe that they identified DeMar DeRozan. And the reason why they said that was because who's the person that is the best at making mid-range twos and going to the cup? Who was that Jordan-esque type player? And they kind of identified DeRozan for that standpoint. And Jackson made a very good point. He's saying it's diminishing returns. So basically, just as we always say, the old school guys were, back in my day, but these newer cats could also say, well, what would you do now? So I think LeBron's transferable skills work just backwards, just as Reggie Miller's work forwards. And if you look at DeRozan, they were stating that the style of play that he utilizes is very reminiscent of Jordan. But he's not Jordan by any means.
We became enamored with the three-point line as a basketball society. but no, but I know what you're saying. But you know me and what I think you probably know where I'm going with this. You ain't got it. You ain't got it. Like he ain't got it. Like he doesn't have the kill gene. He doesn't have the dog in him. He looks glazed over. You know what I'm saying? He just doesn't. He's not a leader. He's very tough. Physically, he's there, right? And the mid-range game, he finishes great, strides. You know what I'm saying? But he just doesn't. He's just not a. He doesn't have he doesn't have the charisma and the leadership and the go get it. And speaking of, I'm going to jump back to that Boston series because that's what I'm speaking about. DeMar not having. How many guys on Boston have it? Like, but you see.
Every time they're interviewed, they had that same group speak, which is, nobody's seen this coming. We have a lot of confidence in our team. We're playing great basketball. We're down a lot of guys and people think that we're weak. We're not as strong. However, we're all professionals. We're all here. We all know what it takes to win. Regardless of who we play, we want to go out there and we want to play. And Smart, Rozier, everybody that they talk to on the Celtics has kind of the same group speak, and it's that.
But I mean, these guys, they all have coconuts, right? Like they all so Marcus Smart, right? He thinks he thinks he's fucking Reggie Miller at the end of games. I will caution this: there will be a game where Marcus Smart shoots them out. Like Brad Stevenson's is doing a balancing act with Marcus Smart and his irrational confidence, right? But Marcus Smart wants it. Jaylen Brown wants it. Tatum wants it. Rozier wants it. Al Horford, for all his liabilities, physically, I guess I will say, he still hits big shots, right? That's one thing you'll say about Horford. He has the clutch gene. And then you go to Kyrie, we know maybe the most clutch player in the league right now, as far as just like ISO, go get a basket. And then Gordon Hayward, which and that's why he'll probably fit, because if that was the one knock on Hayward was like, does he really want to be the guy? So yeah, man, they're just loaded with these young guys, and I don't think this roster is going to stay like it is. You're going to see some flipping 2-for-1 deals probably. Get that dude out of New Orleans maybe. But yeah, so
which Danny Ainge is very adept at. Because remember, people were giving him a real hard time. What are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. But this might be the results of some of his hard work
I
and
think his
foresight.
competitiveness, and he has an eye for talent. I don't know if you learn how to spot talent or if it's just kind of like, oh, you can, you know what I mean? How like if you're a young GM or you've been a GM for 20 years or a scout, like how much better are you as a scout 10 years into it than you were? Like, there's things that you'd probably figure out, but I don't know. I think it might be innate, some of it.
How does it transfer in boxing or UFC? I mean, could you size up a kid and you know, I mean, so let's say you've been a boxing coach for a number of years. I think that boxing might be an area where a coach from the past could still see new characteristics. Or what do you? Is it different per sport?
Mm-hmm.
I think football is the most variable because you have so many guys.
Schemes in football. And you're right. Mm-hmm. The way you flipped it like that, I definitely learned but I also went from. No, I guess you learn. I don't know. I guess maybe the argument would be that by the time you've become a scout for like pro basketball, you've watched a lot of basketball. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you've already have a feel and an idea of the game, but no, you can grow. You can be dynamic. I think that's wrong maybe a little bit, but I guess when you look at the history of it, you see guys with bad track records and they just stay that way. And then you see a guy like Danny Ainge, and they just he stays on point. So I don't know. Let's talk a little bit about this Utah Rockets series.
Yeah, please, let's talk about that. I was glad to see Ingles getting it in. I believe he had around 27 points. He was one of the predominant scorers. Mitchell had around 11 assists. The Rockets looked a little bit sloppy to me, to be quite honest. I see the same thing taking place. Harden has that wonderful quickness, and it seems like he's tough to stop at times. Chris Paul threw up a couple air balls, if I could remember correctly. But it seems like what the Rockets were trying to do to the Jazz successfully did to them. And you were also mentioning the other week ago about why does Rudy Gobert have such big hands and such capability, but such a great challenge of fucking catching the ball and holding on to it. It's weird. Like, he had a position where he was under the basket by himself. And since he couldn't secure the ball, it gave the help defense plenty of time. And then he had to double clutch and double pump and barely made it. Like, he had at least a second.
No, I know that play at the end of the game the other night where,
and
and they even said it on the announcement. And he is kind of, it's very weird because he is very big. I think that but he's goofy in a way, right? He's kind of goofy and he's kind of soft. Remember the text I hit you with? I don't know if we can repeat that, but I thought that was clever.
I do. Yeah, some choices between
right pads or a tampon for Gobert. I just text him in the middle of the game, and I appreciate his so I think where he's effective is laterally. Well, I guess vertically too, obviously, because he's like 7'2". But he moves pretty well laterally, and then he's just and then his wingspan, right? His radius that he can cover defensively is like he shuffles well, but like as far as bursting up and being strong in the paint, part of it's being a pussy, and then part of it is just being like clumsy. He doesn't have any explosiveness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, he doesn't. Even once he dunks, you think it would be a little bit more.
I know. I think I had a call. I had a call in the Utah series when the Warriors played them last season in the playoffs. He had a breakaway dunk, and I was like, the swagless dunk from Rudy Gobert, because he really tried to put some flavor on it. And it was like
Well, yeah, but to be quite honest, I went to France on an 8th grade class trip. I was blessed to go to Paris and Provence. If you get a chance, go to Provence. And here, I don't know if you've ever been to Denny's. I try not to go that much. But crepes, how we think they're all sweet and tasty and stuff. So anyone who's French out there, you'll probably get upset with me. But I was highly disappointed once I went to France. The crepes were not that tasty. So when you talk about him having a swagless dunk, we sometimes look at French cuisine, ratatouille and all this and that. And it was kind of swagless to me. Granted, this was in 8th grade and I was young and not in the know, but the desserts in Spain were much tastier. So y'all can hate on me if you want to, but they just were. The French crepes just weren't that bomb. And I think that maybe Gobert is kind of like a French crepe, because they were what you thought.
I will say
it was
this,
like
though. I will say this in
pancake
defense of, because this is real. Your palate, like a palate, how they'll bring you something like a salad or something when you're tasting things to cleanse your palate, and your palate, as when you say 8th grade, your palate's fucked in 8th grade.
Yeah.
Like, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, you're right. You're right. But I'm just, I feel you. But I'm just saying, like, it wasn't.
no, I feel, I just think
tasty.
that a lot, because you know me and
I don't
my
know.
health shit, and I'm getting back on it. I've been off it. I'm falling off, but I'm back on. And I've tasted I've had my palates jump all over the place, and like, and I really only drink water, beer, and wine. And so, like, if I take a sip of a,
Mm-hmm. It's true.
yeah.
Everyone I've seen.
And
It's very true.
if I take like a sip of a soda or a Gatorade, that shit tastes like Robitussin, right? And that's just an example of like of the palate and the taste buds and how things change and how you acquire tastes for like wine and beer and more bitter tasting things, whiskey. Right.
Sure. I love
But yeah,
that.
a couple takes for me from the series is that Warrior fans, this is I said that we wanted Utah instead of OKC because OKC is incompetent. That Beavis and Butthead gym teacher coach, fucking
Dick Leakey,
Dick,
or-
whatever
I think
the
his
fuck
name
it
is
is,
Dick
dude. That
Leakey.
fool's incompetent with his. I'm gonna leave him alone because I have some. I don't have empathy, but I have pity. But but anyway, Quinn Snyder, to me, and Brad Stevens are the two best coaches in the NBA. Like, you have guys that are doing it with talent and reputation. Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich. There's guys that are good. Carlisle, right? But as far as like that can get more out of less, Stevens and Snyder are those guys. And Snyder, win or lose this series, is giving Golden State the blueprint for Houston. And I know that there's not the same personnel. We don't have a Rudy Gobert. JaVale is comparable in some ways. But just some of the schemes and some of the things that Utah is doing to Houston is from one of the greatest minds in basketball, and we get to follow that, presumably. I'm, again, getting ahead of myself.
Yes.
But one of the things I noticed is they're stunting at their three-point shooters. Not Harden and Paul, but Gordon, Ariza, Tucker. And what a stunt is like, so the help will run over, but they won't challenge. They'll just take a hard step, stunt, and then and they're kind of like faking, right? They're hitting you with hezzies out to the closeout, and then they'll jump because you know how usually it'll get swung and there's two guys they have to cover. And so I think the stunting action is very successful. And then Chris Paul is just limited, man. Chris Paul is, maybe 5'11", right? And on the wrong side of 30. And you're seeing these young guards, Alec Burks, Neto, the Brazilian, Exum. Exum's athletic as fuck, right? And so he's kind of getting abused physically. Crowder.
Yeah. I always see him in somebody's armpit or around somebody's neck. Just
That's why he's always salty, right? He's got a
sweat.
salt ring from
It's
somebody
kinda
else
crazy.
on his face, dude. I'd be salty too, man. But so yeah, that, and I tweeted this out and no one really got what I was talking about, but watch Alec Burke. I believe he's from Colorado, from your neck of the woods at a time, right? You've spent some time in Colorado.
Yeah, man, I'm going there on the 11th. Anybody who's out in Boulder, it's going to be hella fun. Relive the glory
I hope
days.
you make it
But
back.
Yeah, man.
But
Go
no,
Buffs.
I'm messing with you.
Oh, me too.
But anyway, as far as I know, he's American. They said his pops, I think he's the son of an athlete, but he has a crazy European swag flavor to his game. He has that like Ginobili hip swivel where he's kind of upright, bobbling. He does things very European, and I got a kick out of that. Exum, like I said, very athletic, and then Ingles hit with like 7 threes. And I don't know. I think this is going to be a long series, and I think it's good for us Golden State fans, man.
Yeah, man. I got kind of something to say about the Golden State situation. I don't know about it, but I think that JaVale would do nicely on Capella. I could see him mitigating some of Capella's movement and ability, because what I see from Harden getting into that mid-range, then rocketing towards the cup and just throwing it up, I'm not sure if that will be as effective against JaVale. JaVale lives for that. Like, have you seen someone throw an oop on JaVale?
Right. Yeah, no.
I have not.
No, I agree. He is the best. He's the best option at showing off the pick and roll and then recovering back to Capella and making that over the top pass. Obviously, he's 7'2", right? So that the problem with JaVale is, and he's gotten better, he's gotten more disciplined, is if he gets switched out or if he's not recovering, like he gets bamboozled a bit with mid-range pump fakes and leapers leap. The
Yeah.
Jim Barnett, the Warriors broadcaster, that's one of his patent lines, leapers leap, right? He loves to leap because he jumps high. He's got hops. And so he gets jump happy and he has a hard time staying down and remaining disciplined in whatever scheme that they're trying to implement. Now he's got better. And I do think he's going to play in that series. But in the matchup throughout the regular season, it was Kevon Looney who did the best job switching out when they switch. And I'm not a big fan of switching on Harden or Paul. But there's you have to be dynamic with those dudes because they are, as annoying as they are two of the smartest players in the league. And if you keep showing them the same thing, they're going to dissect it. So McGee will be in the fold, man. McGee will be in the fold. Here we are talking about we're jumping way far, but no, I see what you're saying because my mind's there as well.
Yeah, man. I also wanted to talk about the Pelicans, too. I was doing some investigation of how Pelicans hunt. And if you look at it, Anthony Davis really is a Pelican. What Pelicans have, this genetic adaptation, it's been around for I think 30 million years, where they can dive 40 miles per hour down, and they have a natural water repellent ability to where once they hit the water, they can basically suddenly stop without breaking bones because obviously the water's super hard. They have a beak that can cut the water.
That nigga's got a beak,
and they
man.
can hold around 3 gallons of.
Yeah.
There's a point to it. Like if you think about, they're descendants of pterodactyls. Like they have 8. The wingspan is mad crazy, and their genetic advantages, they have things that come over their eyelids that basically can brace the impact so they don't go blind whenever they hit the water. But ultimately, hopefully we can get the footage up. But I showed some stuff of how if you look at a pelican, and if you were to think of, if it was actually a real pelican, Anthony Davis has some of those same characteristics from an aerial assault where he can get in the air super high. He can basically brace for impact, and it's very similar to the way that a pelican hawks his prey. And also on blocks too, you're just not ever going to get over the top of him. So his ability to time and wait, you're going to jump, and he can jump a little bit later than you. So when you really examine the vertebrae of a pelican, the beak of a pelican, the gully sac that they have, and their keen eyesight, I think that's a part. I know this is a far stretch, but I was on this whole thing of like, we use animals to represent teams. What if the teams actually were like the animals? So if they looked at that as a pelican, hopefully we can put the footage up, but Anthony's kind of on that. I'm just taller than you. I swoop down. I can brace for huge impact. I have great eyesight. My bones are just a little bit
His
different than
brows
yours.
and shit, but
and it's just
no, he's special, man. He's special with all the physical attributes in the world. But again, we're going to get into the hearts and the minds of these players. And to me, this is Draymond Green is really building his legend. Like he's not an all-time great talent, right? He's not. But like the legend of Draymond Green is growing because how in the fuck is he outplaying Anthony Davis right now? Now I know there's only been 2 games, but it just seems ridiculous to me that he's outplaying him. He's bullying him, right? And I talked about it. It's gotten a little extra. He needs to watch himself. But Anthony Davis, kind of like DeMar DeRozan, I think, and he's way more talented and he's way more unique, but the same kind of along for the ride mindset. I don't think he's an alpha, and I think he'd probably fit in really well with Golden State. But and why I say that is you don't think Draymond knows if Golden State were to get Anthony Davis, he's the odd man out. So there's that juice for this matchup right there. That's the reality of it.
Sure. Okay. Trying to protect
there's some
his
extra
territory.
about it, and but ultimately, I think that I know that the predicament, I've said it over and over again, is they need Rondo, but Rondo hurts them. If you watch those games, you see how we play off him. I know he had 22 the other night, but he's such a reluctant shooter, and it's really not allowing Anthony Davis to dominate. 25 points is subpar for this dude. He needs 25 and a half to compete with the Warriors, man.
It's interesting. Speaking of that Warriors game, did you see the way Beyonce was looking at Durant? It's a very funny image. Durant makes a 3, and he's hella pumped. So he does kind of like a thrust with his hips. And granted, she's sitting at a lower level, and anyone on Durant, you're going to be closer to. his midsection. But she was sitting right next to to Jay-Z, and I even had my wife, and I was like, what is she looking at? Look at her eyes. What is she looking at? And basically, she's like, oh yeah, you know what it is. So she just looks like the way she nods her head and does this. So if y'all can check out the Jay-Z, and it's funny because if you look at Jay-Z, he kind of looks at her and like she's like, oh. So like we all knew what it was, but I don't know if she likes Durant, but it surely seemed like she was interested in something that he was doing.
You get to a certain level of fame and money and thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Jay-Z was like,
My man.
right? Like he wanted to watch that shit. Some sick shit, and pour
Yeah,
candle
I'm telling
wax
you,
on
bro.
his little
That's-
beads or something. But man, I don't the Raptors. I think like what? Let me ask you this: what's the bigger disappointment? And I know you're not a Raptors fan or anything, but like if they get swept out, the Raptors or Kanye?
Ooh,
I had to.
Thank you for bringing this up. Yes, sir. Because we had talked about who's the LeBron of rap, who is who else were we
like
discussing?
Drake,
Yeah, who's
Wayne,
the LeBron
I
of
think
rap?
we were
And
talking
had our
about.
back and forth about. Yeah, man, definitely. But no, that's a very good
So,
point. Ask a
Who's a
question
big?
again.
Who's,
You're
and
saying
I guess
who's
it's
a bigger
subjective because it
disappointment?
has how many, what your expectations were for each, right? But what's the bigger disappointment? And I could throw the Blazers.
Sure.
So the Blazers, it's these backcourts, these mini backcourts that are just don't fit. The Blazers, the Raptors, or fucking Kanye.
Man, Kanye really went off in a very ugly fashion on him specifically. But yeah, the Blazers and all them, they're very associated. I want to give you a quick history lesson. I taught history for a number of years, and I'm gonna go in just a little bit. So try not to stomp me down, but I do have to go in on this. And it spurs from the fact that I recently saw Black Panther, and I thought it was a very healthy and positive thing for families to watch, specifically black families, because there's a lot of different cross sections. You notice they were in Compton, they were in California, and that is where a lot of the not necessarily pro-black, but where we can gain our identity and not have to basically define ourselves by other people. So there's a point. Stay with me for about 3 minutes. So Kanye recently stated that slavery was a choice. And I kind of want to bring up some things to his remembrance, is the fact that yes, it was a choice, but you have to investigate who's making that choice. And I would encourage him to read some things from Booker T. Washington, some things from Mahatma Gandhi, some things from MLK, Henry David Thoreau, because when it comes down to it, Nat Turner was a preacher in the 1800s in Tennessee. And Nat Turner's revolt is something that we look at as to be a pivotal part in history because he had a slave revolt. So to Kanye specifically, if you're going to make a claim that slavery was a choice, please remember that these individuals had no choice, that there was the 3/5 compromise where people were actually seen to be 3/5 of a human. And the Dred Scott case was to see if he was free or slave even after the war was over. So for Kanye to make the statement that slavery is a choice just shows that he's relatively outside of reality. He's speaking about running as a politician, yet he's really on some coonery and buffoonery. We've talked about Larry Elder, and there's these two black women named Diamond and Silk, and they are Trump supporters. And I'm not trying to get political. You can support whoever you want to, but they're going about it in a very stereotypical way. So I'm going to leave you with this final quote from Booker T. Washington, and I want you to really think about what Kanye said through this lens. So Booker T. Washington opened up Tuskegee, which is a very prominent black school teaching teachers in Alabama. So Booker T. Washington says this: there's a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. So when you look at what Booker T was saying, there is a certain part of every subculture and every group that wants to talk about how they were wronged and all the bad stuff that happened to them. That's how Hitler took over Germany, because he talked about how they were wronged. So in the case of Kanye, he's saying, yeah, these people didn't have to do it. I would have done something else. Not true, Kanye. We would have been basically chained together in the same position. You wouldn't have done shit because there wouldn't have been a choice. You're not about it like that. So be very careful stating that slavery is a choice. And he also stated he had new ideas. These are not new ideas. He has a new idea that slavery is a choice. People have been saying this for a long time. There's even people that think that slaves were transferred from the U.S. to Africa as opposed to Africa to the U.S. because they think that African Americans are actually a descendant race of Native Americans. And if you really look at it, Black people and Native people tend to have a history that's never discussed. We tried to make Native Americans slaves, but they ran away because they knew the landscape. But either way, my take, so you can give me a click here. My conclusion is some aspects of our understanding were better when we were Negroes. As we've turned from being colored to Black to African American, we've lost touch with who we are. We were better off when we were Negroes because at least then we were people who knew our history, were proud of ourselves, and didn't have to make outlandish claims like Kanye just in order to get some identity and a quick boost. So that's my little rant. I'm not going to go too far, but that's for you, Kanye. Slavery was a choice, but not ours.
I feel like you want to fight me right now, but I love you.
So either way.
I don't want to. I had that queued up. I don't want to. No, you make it. To me, and you know me, I don't like. And we talked about this too. About I don't dwell on the past, and I don't want to say that. I'm not a historian like you on it, but I agree with what you said. To me, Kanye. I mean, people are up in arms about this. And, you know, really, and feeling some, I don't know why people are giving it power. Kanye is clearly the homie you run into right now, where everybody's looking over his shoulder and making the eyes with everybody like, oh, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this nigga gone. Like, right? You know, I mean, did you hear that? This sound bit here, the TMZ? Did you see the TMZ?
I feel like you want to fight me right now, but I love you.
And he goes and tries to hug him, and he's just like, and it's embarrassing. It's beyond. If he seemed to have his senses and be normal, and he was saying it, I could see more of an outrage. He's clearly like, woo. Yeah, he gone. He gone. I'm gonna leave these alone. But no, I like what you had to say about it, and I think that. I think that we just have to look into the future. For me, I don't like dwelling. But what did you bring up? Remember when you yes, called me? I don't think we ever put it on the pod, but you were talking about people that are that succeed under pressure. I believe don't look into the past. Something along those lines.
Yeah, for the most part, he can look at it through his own lens. And if you are someone who doesn't have to reflect a whole bunch about past choices that you've missed out upon, that is a true sign of resilience. So when you look at resilience, there was this 5-part questionnaire, and they were stating, do you frequently dwell on past situations? Do you wonder how things could have worked out? Do you go back and try and change your history to meet a certain future point that you had? And if you don't do those things, you're kind of like you, Coach, where you're like, I just live in the future. I'm not going to sit here and wonder what happened if I got that job 15 years ago, or what if that girl that I was dating in college, we would have married and had kids. Like, what's the point? Why dwell on that? At least, and that's how I feel too. And yeah, I'm not trying to get too political or nothing. I'm just trying to say, with that choice making aspect, I really, and back to my original point with Black Panther, I think it's a great thing for every culture to watch because it shows positive families, it shows women being respected, and it shows, you know, there's not any foul language. It just shows our culture in a way that is not always seen. And that was my take on it. You had a certain amount of brotherhood and some cool stuff. So I was appreciative of that being shown on the main stage. But yeah, Kanye, he's kind of tripping. Oh yeah, back out too. Have you seen Lance Stevenson's 720 waves, bro? Like, even though he can't beat LeBron,
he's been brushing them shit since he was like 13. Come on, man.
How do you do? I always tried to get waves.
So you just got to put the moisturizer in it, brush it, and put the wave cap down. It's a process.
Man, I tried. You know I tried, because in Texas that was the thing, because it was humid there, so you had to have the nice.
I could do it, but they never connected all G like that. I didn't put in the work like that. But Lance, you know who Lance? You know Lance is. Man, Lance you should hit that is Tracy Morgan's illegitimate son. Either that or Sean Kemp's, one or the other, man. Right? Kemp, Kemp's got like 15 of them roaming the country, right? He's kind of got the bounce and the swagger. But real quick, before we wrap up, did you by any chance, and I'll get the footage up, did you see Antoine Walker on TV the other day?
Nah.
Oh, I thought it was, I thought Jason Whitlock got a fresh baldy. Like this brother was, a balloon. I was like, And where do you see Antoine Walker? Because I remember like how they used to like sit him out in Miami. Like Pat Riley was like, "No, you're too big, Antoine. You can't run." He's blown up. Speaking of blown up, Kanye looking like swole, and I don't know what because don't you if he was on like opiates and
yes, sir. That's exactly what happens. Same thing with Coke. I've seen it with tons of recovering addicts. It changes into a sugar craze. So when you go to withdrawals, you crave sugar. So that's why anyone, it's funny, man. I know you've seen this. Have you ever seen somebody buy a bunch of donuts and really like grub all of them? And that's all they primarily eat is because they're cheap. They're living on the streets and they're addicted to heroin. So they primarily eat sweets and
some of the
donuts.
kids that I've worked with in the past have been and like it was the sodas. It was the Polar Pops. That was the cheapest, the 69-cent, 64-ounce Polar Pops. And I've had a kid break down crying. He stole one out the Circle K. And some lady like reprimanded him like his mom, and then he broke down crying. And I was just like, man. But no, I've seen the sugar thing. I've seen the sugar thing, and that makes sense. I just don't think he's recovering. I think he's still using. So I feel like he should still be thin.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. I think how long did this go? This was pretty solid. You got anything else? Any other inputs?
Just real quick, you hear about the LeVar, and he's got that JBA league that he's trying to make. He's trying to say that LaMelo's going to be he's really messing up his son. They were saying LaMelo went out to Lithuania or Latvia or Belarus or wherever he was. And what they said about him was he was weak, he was arrogant, and he was lazy.
He was pussy.
Those are the three things
American,
they said about him.
I don't know what accent that is, but
yeah, right. So I don't know what LeVar's on, man, but he needs to let his kids just be who they are.
He's fucking them up. Like the same, like, like he's done a lot to get them where they're at, but at the same time, it's fucking them up, right?
And I know you've got your daughter too. She's going to be wildly successful and all that. How do you balance that line of being a proud parent who loves your daughter or loves your son, see them go through the ranks, work hard, but really step back and not be like, yeah, this was me, because that's kind of what parents want to do.
I don't seek the glory for it. I don't do that, at least not externally. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm trying to balance now is one, like I just had the conversation for her playoff game tomorrow afternoon. Like, you better leave it all out there. You better go for it. And then I turned around and I walked back and I was like, you notice I didn't say you better win or you better score. I just said leave it out there. I'm not worried about the outcome. I just want to see a full out effort in you just leaving it out there. But what I'm balancing now is that I'm kind of I have a dominant personality and a presence within my household as the man of the house. And so, this is from watching LeVar, because I watched Lonzo. Lonzo is so yielding because of LeVar. And so I don't want my kids to be yielding. I'm doing little things within our training and things around, like in our daily routine, where it's like, no, you tell me what to do. You're the boss, because I want them to be able to seize control and be the boss as well. But that's what I'm trying to balance now. But yeah.
Smooth.
All right, man. Well, I don't know. I think this was a good one. I hope we get the footage smoothed out and all this, but I think this was one of our best sessions, honestly. So I hope y'all enjoyed that NBA Life episode 15.